Yesterday, I was basking in the sweetness of marrying him. Today, I watched him tear my friend's throat apart with his own teeth. Chapter 29, The Beast. Thane. I swear I can. No. He growled angrily at me, and it was the first time that he had ever channeled that amount of rage at me. Guess the fairy tale dream from yesterday was over. Please, hear me out. I tried again and stepped closer to him, but he walked away towards the bedroom with his back to me. I don't want to hear it. Get dressed. We're about to meet the vile human who thought he could dare come into my land and take one of my wolf. I walked behind him to try and get through to him, but he slammed the bedroom door in my face and I heard the telltale sign of the lock clicking. He really just locked me out of the room and refused to listen to me. I wanted to yell at him but knew he wouldn't listen, so I tried my new power out. Mind link. I tried to envision and reach Thane in my mind, but I couldn't feel his presence and knew he was blocking me out. My stomach was in knots and I was scared about how Thane was going to treat the situation, but he wouldn't listen to anything that I had to say. Within 5 minutes, Thane emerged from the bedroom freshly showered and dressed. He looked confused to see me still standing there outside the door, but after looking me up and down he stepped around me and muttered, "Grab your shoes." Not knowing what else I could do but go along with the situation, I hurriedly grabbed a pair of tennis shoes and slipped them on my feet before following him out the door. Pancakes and marriage forgotten. Thane walked ahead of me at a fast pace and I could barely catch up, especially since the pain I had didn't completely subside. I couldn't help but slow down a bit when I couldn't manage to walk any faster, and Thane abruptly stopped but didn't dare turn back. "Keep up, would you? My lady bits are sore. Would you slow down?" I grinned out because he was infuriating. He turned back slightly and glanced at me with a worried expression, but it was gone as soon as it came. Instead of apologizing, he kept going but at a noticeably slower pace. I realized we were headed towards the crypt when we passed the pack house, and even though Jake deserved to rot in hell, I couldn't condone the death of anyone. Human, wolf or rogue. We made it to the crypt a little longer than usual because of my slow pace, but as we walked up to the underground building, I realized we weren't going inside because a few pack members surrounded someone who was on their knees, restrained in the grass a few meters away from the crypt. As we made it closer, though, I realized it was Jake. It was a guy named Ian. He was Jake's best friend and a hunter as well. I felt a sudden chill down my spine because it meant that Jake was still out there with the knowledge of the wolves. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Luna. Everyone greeted us as we met them. I could see Ian staring at me in shock as if he couldn't believe I was actually there. "This is the sedative we found back in the pack house." Lucas handed over the needle that Jake gave me that day and I gasped at the sight of it. How did they even find it? I could see Thane tense and I felt the anger radiating off of him as he looked at the vial of liquid before turning to glare daggers at me. But it was just his eyes on me, yet every owner's eyes giving me a shocked and outraged glare. "How do you find this?" Thane asked the question I was thinking. Lucas glanced at Ian with a sickening expression. He said he gave the Luna 3 days ago when he found her here, so Bailey went in and sniffed it out. Even Bailey must think him a bad guy now. Thane just nodded his head and handed back the needle to Lucas. "So this is our little human," Thane said in a deadly playful voice as he bent down and gripped Ian's chin to force him to look into the eyes, which shifted to red, which meant his wolf wanted out. "And the dog?" Ian spat in disgust. Thane drew a fist back and punched Ian square in the nose to the point where he was bleeding. "Don't forget who has the power here," Thane growled, and tried to wipe the blood off on his shoulder with a bit of struggle since he was restrained while Thane raised to his full height. "Now I heard that you know my wife here." Thane said the word with disdain. "Care to enlighten the rest of us on the little story you told my friend earlier?" he said in a command instead of a request. I was about to protest, but Ian cut in. "Your wife? What the hell, Emery?" "Ian aunt." I gave him a warning look to shut up before he got himself killed. "Well, if you look at that, they do know each other." Thane chuckled without an ounce of humor. "So is this your ex, Emery? The guy who wanted to plant that chip in your arm?" Then his expression changed to one of understanding. "Oh, I'm right, aren't I?" After you met me that night you ran along and let him stick some chip in you so you could lead them here. Ian looked confused. Emery, what the hell is he talking about? Thane looked back and forth between us. You aren't the ex. Thane, let me explain. Please. I begged. Thane acted as if I hadn't uttered a word and I could see Bo giving me a sympathetic look and I hoped that someone would hear me out. I walked closer to Thane and grabbed his shoulder but he flinched as if my touch burnt him. Don't. Thane backed away from me with closed eyes and a pained expression. Don't fucking touch me right now, Emery. His eyes opened and I could see the pained expression he held. Heck, because of the mate bond I felt his pain and anger and it was so unbearable since it was mostly directed at me. Just let me explain. Please. I tried with him. For all I know. The same way you hid the fact that he was here. You might lie to us all about what really happened. Thane growled. Listen. I'll tell you. Ian sighed. And what makes you think I'll believe you? Thane growled. Because I don't have a reason to lie, do I? Ian pointed out. Lucas snapped at him. It's clear that you humans are liars. I stared at Lucas in complete horror. Thane. I trailed off as I felt useless. He didn't even look at me as he said. I'd rather hear him than her right now. I felt the blow to my heart and Cal didn't believe he was acting like this. So you better start talking, human. Before I starting breaking your fingers. Ian shot me a terrified look and even I felt scared for him. I nodded my head for him to go on and noted that Thane was glaring at our silent communication. Start talking. Now then he roared. Ian cringed back but spoke up anyways. What do you want to know? Why don't you start with how you got here? Lucas answered. Ian shot me one last look before he proceeded. About 3 months ago Jake started to act strange. He started hanging out with this new chick in town and then suddenly he started talking about the beast again, as if we were any closer to finding you all. He gave Thane and the other guys a glare. What new chick? Thane pressed. He never said what her name was and we never saw her, but she was suddenly shacking up with him. Anyways, it was as if she knew everything about what happened on the night of the ritual. According to Jake's new hookup, she said it was a werewolf that took Emery that night. Ian looked at Van's glowing red eyes and gulped. He only told me. No one else did, but I didn't believe him. We followed an elderly woman out to the forest and saw her transform into this animal. Jake made us this type of spray that concealed our scent. He said that way she wouldn't know we followed her. But I saw it, Emery. He gave me a look of revelation. I saw what they are. They're no humans. They're beasts. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Noben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Dogs. Large wolves. Ian shuddered at the memory, but the only thing crossing my mind was Jane's safety, which was now compromised. Thane turned back around and glared at me. If something happens to Jane, it wouldn't. I tried to convince us both and hoped she hadn't left yet. Go find my grandmother and ensure she stays in the pack. Thane growled out orders to one of the pack members who shifted immediately and ran. Holy shit. Ian scrambled back on the ground and gasped in horror at the wolf before he turned to look at me. You know what they are and you're still here. You're married to one. He accused me as if I betrayed everyone. And I had betrayed everyone. But it was the humans. It was the wolf that I betrayed. My own pack. It's not what you think. I tried to reason. Emery, they take a human from us every 20 years. They took you. They kill whoever seeks them out. You know that, and yet you stand here and tell me it isn't what I think. Ian shouted angrily. Thane grabbed Ian's face. Don't you dare raise your voice or even look at her. Do I make myself clear? Great. Now he wanted to act like my mate. I nodded and gulped in nervousness before he went on. Only Jake and I know what you are, and when he figured out how to get here through the mountains. He came to find Emery. He trailed off. But Lucas pressed him to go on. Impatiently. But when we came here that day, there was a dog around. He trailed off contemplating what he was about to say. But before it could attack us, another one of you guys came out and killed it for us, so we were set. After that we tried to lure Emery out into the forest away from you guys, but we saw her greet another one of you in the forest without surprise and we knew you creatures brainwashed her, so we left. The rogue that was dead the night you meted Den in the forest. Thane muttered in confusion. But that doesn't make any sense because no one in the pack reported the dead rogue until I stumbled upon the body. Lucas looked confused as well. What did the wolf who helped you look like? He thought about it before he said, I'm not sure. Maybe black or brown. It happened so fast that Jake and I just backed away from the scene before we got caught. Lucas didn't look convinced but nodded for Ian to continue. Jake couldn't leave it at that though. He had to make sure everyone knew what was out here, so that's why he came back a few days ago. To get Emery's help. You see, no one would believe us. The hunter's dead set on the fact that mythical werewolves exists. We couldn't kidnap the old lady from town either, because she's an elder and everyone knows her as being human. So our best option was for Emery to get us a wolf. I thought it would have been harder to convince her, that's why I didn't risk coming back out here, but when Jake returned saying that she agreed, I was shocked. Enthusiasm. He glanced at me and growled at him, or maybe it was at me. I was sure. And what exactly did your friend ask my wife? Vane asked in a dangerously low voice. Looked at me guiltily and I knew he felt bad because despite coming here for a wolf, he didn't understand the situation like I did. He just assumed he'd been taken hostage, and back when I knew him in Fairbairn, he was an extremely kind guy, so he must have just wanted to help me. He asked her to sedate one of you animals and bring him or her to the back of that big house where he met Emery a few days back. But he sent me instead and just said to get the wolf. Nothing more. That's why I'm here. He concluded. Why would he send you instead of coming here himself? Lucas questioned. He sighed and went on. He probably assumed Emery wouldn't give him what he wanted and that she would hand over the wolf to me without much of a fuss. When Lucas gave him a confused expression, he continued. Because she's her ex. For all he knows, she probably told one of you guys and would have had him killed. Me, on the other hand. Well, if he always been nice to Emery and her sister, so I doubt she would want me dead. Well, you're going to be dead in a few minutes, so don't count your luck. Thane snarled in resentment. I gasped. Thane. You can't kill him. Thane glared at me as if I betrayed him. I will. If you can't be bothered about the own pack you vowed to protect yesterday, then I'm going to have to be the one to make the decisions around you, Emery. He grated out. But he's done nothing wrong, Thane. By even stepping foot on my land, he should be dead already. For planning to take one of my wolves, he should be dead already. You will pay for your betrayal and his crimes. He snapped at me with a deadly look and I couldn't help but recoil back. Thane. I pleaded with him and he finally turned his full attention to me. Leave us. He commanded the other guys and they all walked away as Thane. He and myself all remained there. You can't kill him, Thane. He's human and he's got a family back home. Why are you so adamant that I not kill him? He asked calmly and I felt scared by his sudden change in behavior. Because he was a friend to me back home. I reasoned. But this is your home now, Emery, and I don't care about his family. The wolf you would have sacrificed would have had a family too, and yet you were going to throw him to the hunters. He said in disbelief. I said that I could explain what happened. I pleaded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. There's no words you could say to me that would make this okay, Emery. Don't you see that? And I could tell his alpha exterior was cracking into one of hurt. I was going to do it. I yelled at him in frustration. Your words have little meaning to me now. He shrugged me off. I didn't mean to hurt you, Thane. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was only trying to protect the pack. I said as a tear slid down my cheek. Protect the pack. The only one you care about is yourself and your human family. You're wrong and you know you are. I croaked out. At the sight of my teardrops. Then expression hardened. Save the drama, Emery. We may be mated, but what you did today could never be forgiven. Never. Don't push me away, Thane. Please. I just let me explain. Please. I grabbed onto his cheeks and tried to reach him through our bond, but I could feel his presence recoil from me as if he was feelings on the mate bond. I need to do what needs to be done, Emery. He knows about us and so does your ex. We can't have him running around knowing that we exist. He completely expelled all his emotions and removed my hands from him. Thane, you promised you wouldn't kill anyone else. Please. I tried one last time for Ian, who looked like he was about to pass out. I made that promise to the woman I fell in love with, was his only words as he approached Ian. After us done with him, he gestured to Ian. He'll go find your ex-lover. He'll drag him back here so you could see the look on his face when he finds out you married the enemy. He'll show him what the beast really looks like, and then he gave me a smile that sent chills down my back. Then I'll kill him with my own two hands along with that girl who's been feeding him information on us. I ran up behind Thane and grabbed onto his shoulder to stop his approaching from to Ian, but he called for Bo and Lucas. They both grabbed my arms and pulled me back from Thane as he spoke in a chilling tone. Take her back to our house and ensure she remains put. He shifted instantly after that and circled Ian. Ian gave me a panicked look, and there was nothing I could do. Nothing he could do to save himself. His eyes were still piercing my soul as Thane pounced on him with a fierce growl and bit into his neck. The blood from a boy I once called my friend was now splattered around his body and on Wolf as the life drained from his eyes, and he took a piece of my soul with him. For the life of me I cowled and looked away as Thane basically teared Ian's head off and mutilated his body. I didn't even realize I was screaming until Bo pulled me into his chest and I let it all go and sobbed. Sobbed for my friend and my broken heart caused by Thane. Besides Ian being a friend, the sight of the true thing carved a horrifying image into my head. The image of what I expected the beast to be when I first encountered him. And lo and behold, my nightmare was standing right in front of me, tearing another human into pieces because of my mistake. I feel sick. I mumbled and pulled away from Bo as I turned around and hurled. I felt someone hold my hair back, but I knew it was Thane because I felt his presence leave and I knew he ran off. Bo held me up as he and Lucas escorted me back to the house. With Thane I spent our dreamy wedding night, which felt like it was years ago as my memory was now marred with the image of a dead Ian. Fairy tales suck. Reality always catches up with you sooner or later. Chapter 30, Alpha's Orders. By the time we made it to the house, I didn't know if I wanted to vomit or pass out. I just rushed to the bathroom while Bo followed me, but I shut the bathroom door before he could see the events that unfolded. I sank down next to the toilet and emptied my stomach until I was at the point where I was dry heaving. I flushed the toilet and shifted over to lean back against the bathtub because I felt as if all the energy in my body was drained and I had nothing else left to pick myself up. I felt cold and empty as I pulled my knees up to my chest and wrapped my arms around myself. The further Thane went, the less I could feel him within me, but his pain was still very prominent. I knew he was hurting, but he never gave me a chance to explain, without realizing it. The tears were back with a vengeance, and since I've been in this pack, I'd have never cried more in my life. I couldn't help the sobs that came as I recalled how Thane killed Ian. He said he couldn't forgive me, but I couldn't forgive him for what he did. The sight of my ring and my tattoo only made the tears pour harder, and rain during a storm. I know I should be picking myself up, but the pain made me incapable of doing such a thing. Thane had my heart and he squashed it in his hands, and nothing made me angrier. He even had the audacity to promise he wouldn't ever intentionally hurt me, and that is exactly what he did less than 4 hours after making our vows. But a promise is a fool's comfort, and I was an idiot for forgetting that. I heard a knock on the door. Not now, Bo. It isn't Bo. I heard a female voice and knew exactly who it was. You better unlock this door before I kick it down. I tried to brush the tears away even though they kept falling as I managed to crawl over to the door and twist the lock. I pushed myself back towards the the door opened to reveal a worried-looking Caroline. By the sight of her, I lost it because I couldn't take it if someone else hated me. I covered my face as I heard her rush over, sat next to me and pull me into her arms. We sat like that for a while with me crying my eyes out and Caroline comforting me in her warm embrace. After my tears turned to quiet hiccups, she finally spoke up. Are you okay? The only thing I could do was shake my head no. I know what everyone thinks you did, but I don't have to know you for as long as they have to know that you could never do that, Emery. I don't believe it one bit, and I want you to know that neither does Bailey or Bo or Delilah and most of the pack. she explained. I turned to look at her in shock. That's not possible. She pulled away from me and fanned before her nose. You really need some mouthwash, Em. She laughed and lightened the mood considerably. A small smile graced my face as she helped pull me to my feet. She pushed herself up and sat on the countertop, where I got to work on removing the awful soreness that plagued my mouth after emptying my stomach. You showed me kindness when I'm sure everyone else in the pack would leave for being rogue. Caroline began. If you hadn't helped Bo that night in bringing us together then, I'm sure I would have been tortured down there. Heck, you saved all the rogues down there. Even the bad guys. Because you told your mate to stop torturing them. I rinsed my mouth out and set my toothbrush aside as I faced her. Caroline, I began to shake my head, but she stopped me. No, Emery. You couldn't even stand knowing that other werewolves you were at a park were being killed. So then how could it be possible for you to just throw someone you know to the hunters? You wouldn't do that, especially since you and Thane are married and you've never been closer to the pack. They're your family and friends, Emery. She stopped and pulled my face to look in her eyes to see her sincerity. You could never do that, and I'm going to fight by your side to ensure that everyone, including that arse of a mate you got, knows that. Count me in, I heard Bo said behind me as he stepped into the bathroom. Honey, it's girl time. Caroline scolded her mate as he walked up to her side. Hey, someone has to be here to fill in for Bailey. He rolled his eyes. Plus Thane has a thing to coming his way with this one angry at him. He pointed to me. Is Bailey angry with me? I asked instead. Caroline placed her hand on my shoulder. Oh, no way. It's just that her mom has been keeping her trapped in the pack house since she's pregnant, and you know her mom already hates your guts for what happened to Abigail. And Lucas also wants her to stay out of this. Bo added, and I knew that Lucas was siding with Thane. Great. Even the beta hates me. I scrubbed my hands down my face in defeat. Is he still out there? I pointed out the door. No, he left to go find Thane. Bo answered. This is all my fault. I shook my head and felt like an anxiety attack was coming on. Caroline jumped off the counter and held my arms. Hey. Just breath in. I tried to listen to her and catch my breath. Deep breaths in and out. She instructed. When that wasn't working, she pulled me into the bedroom. Okay. Just sit on the bed and pull your knees up and tuck your head between your legs. She instructed me, but I already knew what to do since it happened before. I tried to breathe in and out and control my stress and anxiety. But it wasn't working. Thane somehow became my antidote, and now he was gone. I felt my breathing become shorter and my throat was closing up. My mind was wreaking havoc. I felt a hand brushing me hair and Caroline's voice. Breathe, Emery. Breathe. He loves you. You love him. Remember that. I used her words and pictured yesterday in my mind. The feelings. The emotions. And somehow it worked to balance myself for the moment. I took a few minutes to catch my breath and regulate my heart rate before looking at her. How do you know to do that? I asked her as I unfolded myself. After my pack died and I became a rogue. It happened pretty frequently because I was just a kid without anyone. So I tried that and it helped. She smiled at me, but I could see the pain in her eyes from talking about her past. Maybe I should mind link Thane and tell him to come back and hear you out. Bo said worriedly. I shook my head instantly. No, I don't want him here right now. He decided what he wanted to believe and I'm not going to apologize for something I thought was right. I shouldn't have to explain my side of the story for him to trust me. Achias known me for months and he'd married me, and therefore he should have been able to tell that I was being honest in trying to help the pack. At that moment I felt stronger and knew that I couldn't forgive Thane for what he did easily. He should know that I would never hurt anyone. He should have listened. I felt the pain in my chest strike again. In with Emery on this one. Thane should have trusted her enough to at least listen to her side of the story. Caroline declared. And just because he is your mate doesn't mean he deserves the benefit of the doubt. Thank you, Caroline. I showed her my appreciation with a small smile. And you, Bo. I trained him well. Caroline giggled and sent Bo a wink. Now, why don't you take a little rest and we'll be right in the living room if you need us. I nodded my head despite knowing I wouldn't be able to close my eyes without seeing Ian's dead eyes and lifeless body. The pair left me to my lonesome and I took a pillow off the bed and sat myself on the sofa in our room. The more I sat on the bed, the more I remembered last night, and I didn't want to plague the good memories with the bad or lay on the same bed that contained happiness. It just didn't feel right without Thane next to me. I set the pillow on one end and kicked my shoes off before laying down and curling up into a ball. It was just my thoughts and myself left together, and that didn't seem like a good combination at the moment. My eyes cowled and been shut from the fright of seeing Ian's body or than bloody face. The images distorted my mind, but the fact that Caroline and Beau believed in me and Faye didn't is really what had me up. My own mate Cal didn't even trust me. I sighed and rolled onto my back and proceeded to list the reasons for not liking Thane very much at the moment while staring at the ceiling. It must have been at least Ella when I finally got bored and decided to get up and find some company. What I saw in the house, however, really baffled me. The back door leading out to the porch was concealed by a pack member standing like a soldier guarding the door, and as I looked at the front door, there stood another one, but it was a woman. From where I was standing, there was also a girl in the kitchen and a guy outside in the backyard. What the heck? I mumbled and walked over to Guy at the back door. "I'm sorry, Luna, but you can't leave the house," he said formally. What? I almost choked on air. "You can't. Oh, I heard you the first time." I cut him off. "But tell me, why can't I leave my own house?" "Not that I wanted to anyways." "Alpha sorters, why?" I asked impatiently, but he refused to answer me. "I'm your Luna and I want to know why," I said in a commanding tone to get him to submit. "The Alpha commanded all of us." He pointed to all the guards. "Not to disclose that information." "Yeah, because he doesn't have a good enough reason for his actions." I all but growled out as I turned and marched over to Caroline and Beau in the living room area. "Why are there guards here?" I asked in confusion. "Thane sent them over to ensure you didn't run away," Caroline said angrily. "He also made sure we didn't break you out." Beau side-eyed her and turned to me. "Yes, just making sure no angry pack member or that Jake guy gets to you." I huffed and sat myself down across from them. Why would I run? Why would anyone from the pack want to hurt me, and how would Jake even get me? "Well, firstly, Thane is still an ass and thinks you were going to sacrifice a wolf," Caroline piped in, but Beau cut in. "He doesn't want you getting hurt because some, and I mean like just a few, pack members are angry at you, but I doubt they would hurt their own Luna. But most importantly, he sent someone to find Jake and the girl he has, but it would take hours to reach there, and Thane thinks that the Jake guy might be lurking outside the pack somewhere." Beau explained. "She is only trying to protect you." I think Caroline's explanation is more realistic. I mumbled and kicked my feet up on the coffee table. Beau gave me a frown. "Don't be so pessimistic, Emery. He loves you no matter what. You're his mate. His judgment may be a little clouded, but deep down he knows you wouldn't hurt anyone." "Yeah, I doubt that. He had his chances to listen to me and he didn't. That says a lot about his love for me." I was frustrated with this entire situation. "The cavalry is here." A very pregnant Bailey pushed her way into the door but was immediately blocked by the soldier. Steppers-eyed Marine. "Or I will tell the beta you were hustling a pregnant woman." Bailey grinned at the woman as she nodded in respect and stepped aside to let Bailey through. "Bailey," I said in confusion. "Oh, honey." She immediately wobbled to my side and pulled me into her arms. "I heard what happened. Are you okay?" "She's fine, Bailey, but if you don't let her go you might suffocate her," Caroline replied for me, and I was immediately released from Bailey's tight grasp. Looking at her only made the waterworks start over for some reason. She pulled me back in her arms and allowed me to cry my heart out. "It's going to be all right," she comforted me. "No, it isn't," I croaked out between sobs. "He hates me. He killed my friend. If Jake gets here..." Bailey took my face in her hands and looked at me in the eye. "Nothing's going to happen, okay? Jake isn't getting within 100 miles of our land." I shook my head because she didn't know that for sure. She let me cry until my eyes ran dry. "Are you all right now?" she asked, and I just gave her a nod. "Oh, I'm so sorry about what happened to your friend Emery." She looked me over. "Oh dear, you look pale and sick. Are you sure you're all right? If not, I could totally kick the Alpha's ass even in my pregnant state." Her presence alone comforted me, and I cowed in help, but let out a little laugh. I'm okay for now, and thank you for being here. Anything for you, but you do look a bit sick. Maybe I should make you some soup. She got up from the couch and headed towards the kitchen with the other 3 of us in tow. Thank goodness, because I'm starving. Caroline mumbled as Bo and I took a seat on the bar stools at the counter while Bailey gathered her ingredients. You don't have to do this, Bailey. I'm not hungry. I smiled at her in assurance. Speak for yourself, I just said I'm starving. Caroline persisted, and Bailey happily continued her work. I'm making it, and you all are going to eat, she said, eyeing me. Wait, how did you escape your mother? Bo questioned with a raised eyebrow. Bailey gave us a mischievous grin and mumbled with a shrug. I may or may not have locked her in the bedroom. Bailey, you evil pregnant woman, Caroline said proudly and reached across the counter to give Bailey a high five, which she happily accepted. What about Lucas? Bo queried. Bailey rolled her eyes at the question as she placed a cup of tea before me. Contrary to popular belief, Bo, my mate doesn't own or control me. He couldn't keep me away from Emery even if he threw me with my mother. She grinned my way. But HES with Thane, I think. Bailey watched me questioningly as if asking if he could speak about Thane in front of me, so I nodded my head. Apparently Thane ran a few miles away from the pack heading towards the human town, but Lucas managed to find him and convinced to come back because they need a strategy. They sent a wolf to scout the human and spy on him though, but just in case this happens to get bigger than we suspect. They want to formulate a plan. They're building a plan without me. I better go. Bo rose from his seat, but Caroline pulled him back down. If they wanted you there, they would have mind-linked you. She huffed. Bailey gave him a sympathetic look. She's right. After Thane killed that human, he saw you hug Emery and is pretty pissed off. Yeah, I hugged her because he was doing a godawful job at protecting his mate, he said angrily. He killed that guy right in front of her and decided to flee the scene. What was I supposed to do? Leave her to pass out? You did the right thing, babe. Caroline tried to calm him down. She placed a kiss on his forehead and kept her arm wrapped around his shoulder. This is all my fault, I whispered out and lowered my head. No, honey. You just didn't expect it to escalate this far. Bailey tried to comfort me. She's right, him. You did nothing wrong. Maybe if you told us what happened we can help you. Caroline tried to offer me a smile. I nodded my head because she was right. I still had to explain to someone else what went down that day. But first, drink your tea, Bailey instructed as she saw that I hadn't touched the mug. Feeling as if my stomach would reject anything I had, I only took a sip before I spoke up. 3 days ago, I stopped and cleared my throat because it was very croaky. I was in the pack house alone since everyone was setting up for the wedding. That's when I saw him. Jake, my ex-boyfriend. At first I thought it was a hallucination, but when I went to the back of the pack house, at the edge of the forest, it was really him. And what did you do? Caroline pressed when I took a pause. Well, I can't deny that at first I was a bit excited to see someone from my past. I looked up and Bailey gave me an encouraging nod to go on. But that quickly went away as I realized he was actually here, and if he found out about you guys, then we would be in trouble. The thing is, before I could complete that thought he threw it in my face. He knows what you all are and he found his way into the pack, and the only thing my mind told me to do was run. But I couldn't. The vivid memory of him gripping my arms made me shudder and I hugged myself. I couldn't run because I had to find out how he knew, and I physically couldn't get away because he had me in his grips. I heard a growl and saw an angry Caroline, Bailey and Bo. He also knew something strange. I muttered, "What does he know?" Caroline asked in confusion. He cut my palm because he knew I could heal, I said, and I could basically feel every owner's anger radiating off of their bodies. He knew you could heal. Bo gasped and I nodded my head. That's odd considering the only people who knows that are in this pack. I shrugged and went on. He told me that a good friend of his told him where I am and about the werewolf world. But I only just found out it was some girl when Ian explained what's been happening. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, He tranquilized one of the wolves to get into the pack territory, and that's what he gave me to get one of the wolves to him. The moment he said he knew about werewolves, I knew he was up to something because he hunted the beast for most of his life, so finally discovering what it is, what's going to stop him from killing each and every one of you? I took a sip of the tea to help calm my nerves before I went on. I asked him what he wanted, and that was when he told me his grand plan. He wanted me to tranquilize a member of the pack and bring him or her to him so he would have proof that werewolves exists. At first I said no because it was absurd to even entertain that idea. I would rather have dyed his hands than let any one of you get locked up in some lab and tested like a rat to let him have proof to cause a war that would lead to the genocide of the werewolf race. I tried to explain. But, you agreed. Bailey's face twisted in confusion as she asked. I couldn't deny him. And why the hell not? We would all have been able to take him, Caroline expressed. No was around and he had silver bullets. At that, they all went deadly silent. The bullet would have hit anyone before you could kill him, so I agreed. He said if I didn't, he would wage a war between the hunters and werewolves. He would lead them all here and I couldn't have that. I scrubbed my hands down my face in agony. But if you gave them a wolf, they would have done it anyways. Bo pointed out. I know, and that's what I told him, but if I agreed to it he would warn me before he attacked so that Thane and I could run away and he would let us live. And you accepted that. Caroline almost fell off her stool, accusing me no. I groaned out. Well, yes. I did, but not for that reason. I only told him yes because he would believe me since he knew Thane and I are mates. Also, I had an agenda. I sighed and hoped they believed me. I told him to come back in 3 because I knew Thane and I would have mated by then, so when Jake came back and I went to meet him, I could easily mind link Thane that Jake was here. Thane could have ambushed him from behind. Even if Jake kidnapped me, then Thane would have been able to track my scent since it would have been more powerful for him after we mated, and I would have been able to warn him about silver bullets as well. I wasn't going to sacrifice anyone and I didn't want to get hurt at the time. It seemed like an efficient plan. But why didn't you tell Thane after Jake came here? Bailey asked. Because we don't know where Jake's source is coming from, and if someone in the pack is leaking information to the girl HES with, then if I had told Thane before, everything and everyone would have been at risk. Plus he was excited for the wedding. I didn't want him to cancel it because of stupid Jake. Clearly I'm the stupid one, however, because I woke up too late and now the mess is made. I looked at each of them as they seemed to be contemplating what I said. You guys have to believe me. I never wanted to put anyone in danger. I just wanted to get rid of Jake without any wolves dying or the humans finding out. Bailey walked around the counter and came to my side and pulled me into a hug. I believe you, honey. So do I. Even though your plan was stupid. Caroline grumbled and joined the hug. Ditto. Bo agreed with his mate. You were only trying to protect us, Emery, and I hope Thane knows that as much as we do. He didn't want to hear me out before and he had the chance to listen. I'm not going to bother explaining myself to him now. He can believe what he wants. I shrugged in defeat. We'll forget about him for now. Let's eat. Bailey dragged our attention away from the gloomy topic back to her cooking as she grabbed a few bowls and poured some soup into each. Thank you for doing this, Bailey. I appreciated her help even though her own mother and mate didn't want her around me at the moment. She just smiled in return as I attempted to stomach the soup. My appetite was long gone, but I tried to get the hot liquid down since I had not eaten all day. However, not even Bailey's delicious cooking could be kept down as I leapt up from my seat and ran straight into the bathroom and emptied the little of what I ate. I guess the visual of Ian's pleading eyes and dead body still had me queasy. I flushed the toilet and scrubbed my mouth to get rid of the taste. I decided to take a warm bath to relax my muscles and ease the stress of the day. Are you okay? I heard Bailey's voice in my mind and jumped in fright because I had forgotten about my new ability. Yeah, I'm fine. Just need a moment. I linked back to her before I got in the shower and turned the water to scalding hot. I stepped under the water and allowed the heat to relax my tense muscles for a bit before it got to the point of feeling like my skin was on fire. I quickly scrubbed the day's grime off myself and found some comfy pajamas in the closet which I changed into before going back out to my supporters. The 3 were all gathered in the living room as I approached them and Bailey gave me a sympathetic look. I'm fine. I told her before she could ask and set myself next to her and across from Caroline and Beau. Caroline pulled the conversation in the direction of a small idle chit-chat while I snuggled into the couch and kept myself warm as the fireplace burned. Before we knew it, it was after midnight and I insisted for them all to leave and get some sleep and I would be okay. Even though on the inside I wasn't okay and with the lack of company, besides my guards, it was going to be a lonely night. Not having much of anything to do, I strolled back to the bedroom, grabbed a blanket and stretched out on the sofa. Thane hadn't even bothered to return. I kept the lights on because I was terrified that the darkness would bring unwanted demons with it. But after a while, I finally fought off my demons as tiredness succumbed me to sleep. Thane and I sat in the middle of a beautiful meadow as I giggled at one of his many jokes. The sun shined brilliantly above us and the flowers were freshly blooming as if it were springtime. The smile on his face compared to nothing else I had ever seen. I ran my hand over his cheek and noticed my wedding ring gleaming in the sun. "I love you," I told him, but the words didn't escape my mouth and I tried again to find my voice. "I love you," but no sound came out. Then S' beautiful smile twisted into a sorrowful expression and he got off the ground. "You don't love me. I love you, damn it." I tried to yell at him, but he couldn't hear me as his face contorted into heartbreak. "You want to kill us all," he declared as the sky turned gloomy and the flowers around us withered and died. He turned his back to me and walked away as a strong wind struck through the meadow and tossed my hair over my eyes and concealed my view for a brief second. When I managed to pull my hair away from my view, I saw the one person who I never wanted to see again in my life. There Jake stood, concealed to the left of us by a huge tree trunk. I tried to yell at Thane to get his attention, but my voice failed me, and Jake gave me a sinister grin as he withdrew something from his jacket. A gun. I tried to get on my feet, but they felt like the anchors weighing me down and preventing me from getting up. From where I sat on the ground, I saw Jake place his finger on the trigger. And just like that, a loud sound echoed through the forest as a silver glint flashed before my eyes and flew straight to the S back. I felt as if it was slow motion as my lungs felt like they were collapsing. My heart fell to my stomach and then S' body dropped to the ground, face first. I looked back over to where Jake stood, but it was empty with no sign of anyone else. My feet suddenly felt lighter and I quickly pulled myself up and ran to my mate. I dropped down next to his body, which was laying in a pool of blood. I struggled to turn him over and grabbed onto his chest with a bullet through his body and applied as much pressure to the wound to stop the bleeding and forced as much of my healing powers into the Ness body. But I was too late. He was already dead and it was all my fault. Thane was dead. Chapter 31. Heartbroken. Wake up, Emery. Wake up. I heard someone yell and pulled me from my sleep. I peeled my eyes opened and realized I was screaming like a banshee. I stopped my wailing as I realized it was just a nightmare and Thane was right before my eyes. He was sitting right next to me with a concerned expression. I threw my arms around him as the tears spilled out my eyes and I buried my face into his neck. I felt him tense under my arms and was slapped with reality. He pulled me away from him and got off the bed. Wait, the bed. I realized that I was sitting on the bed when I clearly remember falling asleep on the sofa in the room. It was just a nightmare. He mumbled gruffly. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay." "What did you dream about?" "That human's dead body," he said with disgust. I looked at him with absolute shock that he would throw that in my face. "How could you even ask me that?" "Because there's clearly nothing else that matters to you except the humans." He shrugged in indifference. "Well, to fact-check you, it was actually your body, lying in my arms as I watched you die." I croaked out as the pain in my chest blossomed. He aired me, his expression softened as he tried to reach out to me. I cut him off. "No, I don't want to hear it. You know, I actually thought that you knew me better than anyone else, but you don't. You act like you have me all figured out with being the bad guy, but I'm not. I love you, and you stand there and accuse me." "I know." I yelled at him. "Get out." I shouldn't have said that. He stepped closer to the bed, but I recoiled. I said, "Get the hell out." I shouted at him as fresh tears started to stream down my face. I watched as his face contorted into guilt, but he walked out anyways and slammed the door behind him. I clutched my chest as the pain in my heart returned with a vengeance. My pain and then pain was all mixed into one through our mate bond, and it was consuming me. I felt my breathing getting labored, but it wasn't another panic attack. This time it was the symptom of a heartbreak. Something made a loud crash outside as if glass was being broken, and it frightened the living daylights out of me. I sprang out of bed and pulled open the door. It was dark, but the kitchen light was on. So I walked over, only to see Thane surrounded by broken glass. His eyes were bloodshot and I could practically see his body shaking with anger and sadness. His entire demeanor was detached and cold, unlike the warmth that I've grown so accustomed to. He stood across from me with rage, resentment, guilt and sadness, but I knew I held the same expression for him, and we just stood there, staring at each other as the minutes ticked by. He remained silent and I couldn't take it anymore. Yesterday, I croaked out because my throat felt constricted. You said that you would never intentionally hurt me. You said that I was your equal and you'd always protect me. But most importantly, you said you love me. His eyes burned with emotion, but he remained silent, so I went on. I don't know what those words meant to you, but for me it meant the world. It was a sacred promise. A promise that I reciprocated. I swallowed the lump in my throat before I continued. When I told you that I love you, I meant it. When I said that I would stand by your side and protect the pack, I meant it. I swore to the moon goddess then, and I swear to her now that I meant every word I said. But since my words mean nothing to you, then there's nothing I could say to fix this. Tears fell from my eyes as I looked at my wedding ring. My fingers fiddled with the piece of jewelry before sliding it off of my finger. I looked up at Thane and saw his eyes widen in horror. Until you put some truth behind your promises and realized that I never meant to hurt anyone. My voice caught in my throat at what I was about to do. I don't want this. I can't do this if you have no trust in me. I placed the ring on the countertop among some shattered glass that represented my heart. I looked back up at Thane, whose face was set in one of anguish and anger. Tears were at the brim of his eyes and I could tell he was trying to hold it back, but I couldn't look at him anymore. I turned around, a somber growl escaped him and I could feel it rake through my body, but I didn't dare turn back. With every step I took towards the bedroom, I prayed that he'd call me back and apologize and hear me out. But he didn't. I hated to leave him standing thinking God knows what, with my ring on the counter, but he had to know that what he did wasn't easily forgivable. I made it to the room, shut the door and went straight to the sofa, where I buried my face in the pillow and let my emotions wash over me. I didn't know what time it was that I woke up, but there was shouting outside the bedroom door. It sounded like Thane and his father, but I had a massive headache that disrupted me from hearing what they were saying. I got off the sofa and walked towards the door to hear what they saying. I can't believe you killed this human boy in front of your mate. Have I taught you nothing? Carson roared. Dad, no. The pack isn't just yours. It's your mate's and yours together. But from what I heard, you just tossed her aside without hearing what she planned on doing. You think I haven't thought about that? Thane raised his voice. I can't get the image of her face out of my head when she saw what I did to that boy. So fix it. I can't, Dad. Thane shouted before he got quiet and I could barely hear what he said next. She hates me. I backed away from the door as their voices died down and I couldn't hear any more. Whatever Thane thought I felt was incorrect, but I wasn't about to tell him that. I just powdered my way to the shower and washed my tear-stained cheeks from last night at an incredibly long shower. By the time I was finished, I felt numb, physically and mentally. The first thing I found in the closet was a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt, so I pulled both on before going back to the room. A fresh bunch of flowers caught my eyes. On the bedside table laid wildflowers, and it looks like Thane could at least keep one promise. As I gingerly picked it up, I felt my throat constrict, but I refused to cry again. I placed them in the vase of water with the bunch from yesterday and then finally walked out the bedroom door. Surprise washed over me as I saw Carson sitting alone at the dining table and Thane was leaning against the counter in the kitchen with his arms folded, and he was staring intently at the ground. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Carson greeted me. Good morning, Carson. I tried to smile at him, but I'm sure it came out more like a grimace. He gave me a warm smile and nervously looked between Thane and myself before his eyes settled on my empty ring finger. And even though the ring was only on my finger for a day, I felt empty without it. It was like a physical piece of Thane's affection, and I gave it back. Carson's eyes flashed back to mine with sorrow as he cleared his throat. Thane and I was talking, and we think it's best if you come stay with Anne. The boys and I for a couple of days until... He trailed off as his eyes moved back to look at his son. My eyes shifted to Thane as well, but his gaze was still fixated on the floor. I gave Carson an apprehensive look. You don't have to if you don't want. He quickly inserted. I reached into my mind for Thane and his presence was faint. But he was there. Do you want me to leave? I asked him through Mind Link, and his eyes quickly flashed up to my own. His face was expressionless and I couldn't understand what he was thinking. It's for the best, was his only response. That's not what I asked. It doesn't matter what I want. You should just leave. He growled through the mind link before cutting himself off from me and walking out the door that led outside from the kitchen. I felt tears prickle my ears as I turned back to Carson and gave him a nod. I'll pack a bag. He nodded. I'll meet you outside. My feet felt like anchors weighing me down as I moved through our bedroom like a ghost. I found a duffel bag in the closet and threw comfortable clothing into it. Was like I needed to impress anyone. My eyes wandered over to the S side of the closet and before I could think twice and change my mind, I walked over to his shirts and packed a few that had his scent on it. After gathering a few toiletries, I was all set. I was physically leaving, but my heart was staying back in this house with Thane. I took one last look around the house and I prayed that whatever was happening between Thane and I would soon be resolved, because my heart couldn't handle being away from him for this long. The sky outside was gloomy as I walked towards Carson's car. Thane was leaning against a tree to my right, and he kept his eyes on me as I opened the car door. I turned back and looked at him, hoping one last time that he'd say something. Come after me. Tell me not to go. But he didn't. He fixed his gaze back to the ground as I sat in the car and closed the door on my life. Ready, kiddo? Carson asked me with a grave tone, and I could only manage to nod my head in fear that my sobs would escape me. As the car drove away from the house, I looked at the rearview mirror to see Thane on his knees and his hands covering his face as his body shook. It was the first time I saw Thane broke down, and I wasn't even there to comfort him. With that last image forever painted in my mind, I turned back to look out the front. He'll come around. Don't worry. Carson mumbled. I'm not sure you're right. I trailed off as the rain began to pour. Embry, darling. And pulled me into her arms as soon as we arrived at her and Carson's house. They'd already left with a den after the wedding, so it was just her, Teddy, Thomas and my family for the time being, since my husband basically told me to get out. Hey, Anne. I basked in the warmth of her arms after the atmosphere took a chilly turn. The rain was pouring buckets outside and it didn't seem as if it would ease up any time soon. She pulled back and looked at me with guilt, and I knew she was filled in on my situation with Thane. You look like you could deal with something to eat. I was about to protest, but she took my hand in hers and walked us over to the kitchen, down a hallway and through the last door to the right. Her kitchen was magnificent, with a large window behind her sink and a glass door leading out to the backyard. I just made lasagna, she said as she grabbed a plate and cut a piece for me. I'm really not that hungry, I informed her. Oh, nonsense, she protested. I know Thane would want you well fed while you're here. Just hearing his name alone sent a sharp pain through my chest and then gave me a worried look. I'm okay. She nodded but looked unconvinced as she passed me the plate. My stomach was in knots and the last thing I wanted to do was eat, but I didn't really have a choice as Em remained in front of me with a determined expression on her face. By some miracle I got through half of it down without wanting to spill my guts out, but I couldn't eat anymore, and luckily Em understood as she set the plate aside and took me to the living room. As we sat down, she pulled a throw over my shivering form and dusted. I never expected my son to act this way. Me and you both. I grumbled. I can't speak for why he did what he did, but what I can say is that he loves you. I looked at her surprised, but she went on. In not defending what he did to that boy or acting the way he is, but from the moment I saw you two together, well, I knew that my baby boy fell in love. He never takes his eyes off of you. You know, anytime I talk to him, he always goes on and on about you and how he can't wait till you to get married. Her words resonated within me, but it didn't change what happened. At your wedding, you both looked so content, so in love. It was as if you both took the word love itself straight from a book and portrayed it right before every owner's eyes. It was magical. She wrapped her arm around my shoulders. After I met Carson 20 years ago, it was difficult to adjust. As you know, but there is a moment that I'll never forget. I looked at her curiously. What is it? She gave me a sad smile. I was already pregnant with Thane at the time, and I always liked to take walks in the forest behind the pack house. It brought a sense of tranquility to me. At that point, I've never seen a rogue or been exposed to a wolf fight, but that day, two rogues showed up. They managed to slip past our patrol and sneaked into the territory. I gasped at what she said. What happened? I was no match for two fully grown wolves, nor was I accustomed to using my powers, or else I would have slapped them with a branch, but they knew I was the Luna. One of them pounced on me. I fell and cracked a rib. The other one bit my leg and there was blood everywhere. My heart was pounding rapidly as she recalled her encounter with some rogues. I was sure I would have lost Thane that day, but I didn't, obviously. Carson came to find me in no time and teared the two rogues apart in front of my eyes. You know why? Because he was protecting you, I answered. She smiled. That's right. He killed them because he almost lost his mate and child at their hands. At first I was angry at him and repulsed that he could do such a thing, but then I thought about Achias, a werewolf. It's his instinct to kill anything that threatens the livelihood of his pack. I must admit it took a while for me to get accustomed to the idea that he was killing others just so that I could survive, but I knew in the long run that the pack needed me and my kids needed me. The rogues would just kill us anyways if we don't do something. However, that revelation didn't come easy to me. Carson and I fought about it. He was angry at me for going into the woods alone that day, and I was angry at him for what he did. We were both stubborn and wouldn't hear the other one out. So how did you resolve it? By talking. She grinned. It took us a while, but we were madly in love, just like Thane and you. We couldn't go a day without talking, so we fought again, and then we worked it out. But it isn't that simple for us. It's different than a few rogues. The guy was my friend. I know, sweetheart. The endearment instantly reminded me of Thane and the fact that since he found out about Jake, Achias only called me Emery. I'm not saying that what he did is the same or that it's unfair. I know it's going to take some time for things to heal between you two. But what he did was to protect you. He shouldn't have killed the boy, but these alpha men in our lives think it's their duty to protect us when it's really the other way around. He couldn't admit to himself that it was you protecting him, but he'll come around. He knows the truth, but it will take him a while to admit it, and until then you make him work for you. I couldn't help but giggle at what she said. He didn't listen to you, and it's himself he has to blame for that, not you. I don't know why he'd asked us if you could stay here, but Achias in pain just as much as you. And after what he did, I know it may seem to you that he doesn't feel that way, but he does. I don't want this hiccup to break you two apart when you've only just started your lives together. But when everything with that human boy settles and Thane comes groveling, I hope you give him a chance to listen to you. She pleaded. Maybe, but I don't want to see him anytime soon. I hope you can understand that. I whispered out. I do. As I said before, you're my daughter now, and I stand behind you and your decisions. Make him grovel and earn back your trust before you decide to take things further. But just don't break both of your own hearts anymore. She wrapped both her arms around me. Thank you, Anne, for everything. Anytime, dear. By the time night came around, I had started feeling a bit better health-wise, as I hadn't thrown up again, but every time I zoned out, Ian and Thane would pop into my mind, and surprisingly set me up in Nella's old bedroom, and I wanted to protest, but after walking into his space, I felt an odd sense of calmness wash over me. She left me for the night as I unpacked my bag and looked around the room. Across from his bed was a floor-to-ceiling window which displayed the backyard, the shining moon in the sky, and of course the unstoppable rain that pitter-patter on the glass. He had a wall filled with books, everything from classic novels to Business 101. The wall above his bed were even covered in old band posters and nerdy stuff. His desk was covered in papers and textbooks from when he attended the Pax High School. One of the wall contained a few pictures of him and his family when he was a child, and I couldn't help but smile at the little innocent boy in the photographs. There were pictures of him in his diapers rolling around in some mud. An 11-year-old him sitting in newborn Teddy in arms and then helping Tate hold Thomas, and there was a picture that looked when Thane graduated high school with Bo and Lucas at his side. I turned back to his bookshelf, and to my surprise, it held a picture of the both of us. It was taken the day when he introduced me to the pack. We had a similar one in the pack house, and I planned to line our walls with family photos in our house, but this one was different. The one back in the pack house showed us both smiling at the camera, but this one was of Thane smiling down at me while I was laughing at the camera. The way his eyes sparkled with his pure focus on me took me aback. I didn't know why he had this gem in his parents' house, but I was glad that I saw it. I placed it back down before I walked into the bathroom for a shower. Being surrounded by the space, I couldn't help but miss him as I slipped on one of his T-shirts to bed. I turned off the lights and snuggled into his bed as my eyes focused on the rain outside. It represented my mood, heartbroken and cold. Hours passed until I finally fell asleep. "Darling, wake up," and called to me as my eyes snapped open. I looked around confused as to where I was, and realized I was still in the nestled bedroom. I sat up and remembered what happened. I had that dream again, where Jake shot Thane. My eyes snapped to the large window when I heard a loud, piercing howl. The sound was haunting and almost as if the wolf was in pain. Somehow I knew it was Thane. "Are you all right?" Ella's question snapped my attention back to her. I nodded my head. "Yeah. It was just a bad dream." He was screaming pretty loudly. "Do you want to talk about it?" she questioned hopefully, but I shook my head. "It was nothing to worry about. I'm sure it will pass." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Lilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. "Have it happened before?" "Only last night," I assured her. "I'm fine. Just go back to bed. It'll be all right." She was convinced but got up anyways. "If you insist, but if you need anything just tell me. Even if it's Thane, I'll drag him here by his tail if need be." I grinned. "That wouldn't be necessary, but thanks for offering." "Well, the offer is always on the table. Good night, dear." She smiled before closing the door but left the lights on. I didn't know why I turned it off in the first place. I went back to bed, but this time my eyes didn't close until the sun was coming up over the horizon. The next morning, I woke up to see fresh flowers on the nightstand. "Thane." I pulled on a pair of pants and rushed downstairs to him in the kitchen. "Is he here?" The hopefulness in my voice was prominent, but the look on her face broke my heart. "He came by early this morning. Went into your room and then he left without a word. He didn't say anything or left anything else." "Maybe my ring." "I'm sorry, dear." He rushed out of here. I could see the pity in her eyes and I didn't want it. "If he comes back, tell him I don't ever want to see him again." I ran back upstairs to my lonesome after being abandoned and by my mate after our sham wedding.